We both obtained several internships last year. Being in high school, we were also featured in articles in relation to the publication of our books and our nonprofit organizations, and we were also featured in 2 TV interviews, which we obtained through cold emailing. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Selena.
And we're recent Ivey graduates in Toronto, Canada, who have gone into some of Canada's best business programs, which we have linked in the caption. Also, feel free to check out our other videos to learn more about us and what we do. Don't worry, you won't be disappointed. Today's video will be an apprehensive guide to cold emailing with several tips, as well as a successful example of an email that we've gotten results from. So make sure you listen to every point carefully, and if you find this video helpful, like, comment, and subscribe. We both obtained several internships last year. Being in high school, we were also featured in articles in relation to the publication of our books and our nonprofit organizations, and we were also featured in 2 TV interviews, which we obtained through cold emailing. So before we get into the tips of how to write a successful cold email, first of all, what is it? So cold emailing refers to an email that you send to someone without any prior contact, so essentially a stranger. Cold emailing is harder than most communication because of 2 main reasons. The first one being that obviously you have no relationship with the person who's reading your email, you don't know them, and then secondly, you also can't really get active feedback from the person who's reading the email because you don't know if you're doing something right or wrong or what you can improve on. An example of this is in a real life interview, you would be able to see someone's facial expressions, and this is something that you can't get through cold emailing. So this video can really be applied to any situation and doesn't have to be solely for just acquiring a job. You can do it for internships, volunteering, or really any organization that has an opening or doesn't have an opening. So these tips are really applicable to all types of scenarios. So the first thing you should do is to find a job that you're interested in. And there's various places that you can go to find them, such as LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, news stations, and even Instagram, surprisingly, where you can use hashtags like hashtag internship, hashtag high school opportunities, and a lot of things will show up. But you also don't have to necessarily find a job opening. You can create the opportunity yourself. So for example, last year I was a digital marketing content creator with a local business called Toronto, and they didn't actually have any job openings, but I cold emailed and reached out to them and was able to obtain the position. So really, the sky is the limit, and also when you create an opportunity for yourself, the competition is obviously less. So use that to your advantage. So the second point seems like a no-brainer. Obviously, you want to conduct research on the company's mission and the job description. So this ultimately will make you stand out from many applicants because not a lot of people will do so much research, and if they do, they might not do it so in depth. So you want to make sure that you're one of those people who do the in-depth research. So be as specific as you can and focus on the information that stands out to you and is specific to this job description. For example, in your email, when you're writing things, don't just say, "I love your product." You have to be way more specific than that and try your best to tie this into ultimately the position that you want. Make sure that you also can incorporate some of the company's mission and what their goals are, what their current events are, to really show that you have done this research and makes yourself stand out from others. So the third thing you want to do is specify why this company is important to you and why you deserve this position. So naturally, when you apply for a job, you're not the only one that's applying. And if you're not the only one that's applying, that means there's a chance of you not getting it, which also means that you need to stand out from the crowd. So one way that you can do this in your email is share a story. So going back to my example of working with Toronto, my story was about how growing up, me and Selena played with stuffed animals a lot. So some of our stuffed animals were like lions and horses. So I said, how these stuffed animals travel together and went on missions together, and I even joked and used some humor and said they even joked about eating each other. So this kind of humor could have been the defining characteristic that got me this position. So really, you want to personalize it and you want to really tell a story. Next, what you want to do is give examples where you demonstrated the characteristics for this job and also tie in your past experiences. So if you have past projects, mention those, and when you do, use the STAR method, which you may have heard about before. It's a method recommended for writing resumes, but essentially STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So for example, when you're talking about something, say, I worked at X company and I did Y, which led to X. So for this fourth point, You really want to customize your email to make it personalized to you. The thing with cold emailing is that it's all about personalization. For example, if you're interested in a social media intern job with a big fashion design company, you may want to attach a sample of the type of social media post that you would create for them, so that not only shows your really great interest and passion in this position, but also that you use your skills to make this, and if they like it, they can really just see the tangible results of what you can bring to the table. So when you're starting your email, you really want to start by vaguely introducing yourself. So you can say your name, your grade, what school you're from, as well as where you're based, and that really just shows the receiving end of your email that you are a real person, and specifically that you're a student, which is going to be your standout point. So many companies like to give positions to hardworking students and students who show that they really went the extra mile to do all this research on them, because ultimately you are students and you're someone who's willing to learn and grow. Furthermore, when customizing email, try not to use the same phrase that it looks like you could have used this for like 10 other companies. Make sure it's nice and specific and personalized enough that it seems like you wrote this email just for this one company. Even if you wrote like 10 different emails for 10 different companies that are all the same, make it seem like to the person who's reading this email that you did this all just for them. So the next thing you want to do is talk about yourself. So talk about the specific experience that you have with this job. So for example, if you have 20 different experiences, but half of them are not specific to the job title, then the hiring manager doesn't care and neither should you. So don't waste your time, just put what's relevant to the job and will increase your chances of getting it. Next, what you want to do is you also want to include keywords in your email. So use words like led, initiative, developed, and make sure that whatever words were mentioned in the job description, talk about those as well. Make sure to add both qualitative and quantitative details in your email. So for quantitative, don't just say something like, I impacted high school students in my community. Be more specific and say, I impacted 30 high school students in my community, because not only does it make your work seem more credible, but it also shows that you really delivered an impact. So if you have numbers, use them to the best of your ability. So the next thing you should do is to be professional in your cold email. So this may seem like a given, but because you don't know this person, it's so important to be professional. And some ways you can do this is by spell checking, grammar checking, using a formal tone, and even addressing them by their name, rather than using to whom this may concern. Another piece of advice is not to be afraid of following up on your emails. So if the first time that you send an email and you don't receive a response, this may not be because the hiring manager didn't want you, but because they're busy, so they couldn't get back to you. And going back to the Bava example that I talked about, the first time I emailed, I didn't receive a response. The second time I didn't either, and then only the third time, they say third time's a charm, I received a response and it picked up from there. So don't be afraid to follow up like after every couple of weeks since you sent your first one. But if you follow up and there still isn't a response, don't keep doing it. So I would say like 3 is a good number to stop. I've been mentioning Bava Toronto a lot in my advice, so it's only fair that I show you guys the example cold email that I sent to them that landed my position as a digital marketing content creator. So in the caption below, we have a link to that, and the reason why I wanted to give an example is because we know that we would have found it helpful if we had one. Lastly, at this point, it may seem irrelevant in terms of cold emailing, but have a somewhat decent resume, just because if you have one that doesn't look professional at all, even like really no matter how great your email is, your resume will kind of throw that away. So there's lots of examples of really great resumes of people who have gotten into large and big companies with their resumes. So you can find these successful templates online, but just make sure that when you're cold emailing, even though you might write a chunk at the really beginning about, who you are, your passions, what you can do for them, you still say at the end, like, I've also attached my resume for your review, just so people know. And then it looks more credible, because it's like, even though you said all of this, you now have your actual resume with more information to back up your points. So that's it for today's video. We hope you now are able to write your own cold emails. And once again, we've attached a link to an example of an email that you can refer to when writing your own. We've also put links to the videos of activities that we have referenced.
So this is a quick overview of what I sent to Vava Toronto. So in my first paragraph, I talk a little bit about myself, my education, and why I want to join the team. So I talk about how I visited this store a while back. And then in the second paragraph, that's when I used the story method. So I gave a story and talked about why I liked stuffed animals and how this sort of led to my creative drive. And then in the third paragraph, I talk about my experience. So I talked about my art account and also my organization. I gave stats about that, and then talked more about why I would be suitable for the position that I want to get. And then I talk about sort of my idea for them. That way it shows that I'm being more engaged and I'm actually, my email specifically targeted for them. And then I attached a Instagram story highlight for that. And then I conclude that with why I want to join the team and how I support the mission, and then attached my resume. So this is a longer email, and we generally don't recommend the emails to be this long. However, we really wanted to just give you guys this example in case you need it.
Once again, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. That way we can get real feedback as to what kind of content you guys want to see. But until next time, the Gortons out.